all people see is the sort of, oh wow, you've done really well, you're in the market. It's like the iceberg thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then they don't see the stress, the sort of difficulty, the nearly running out of money. So it got to 2023, we were 6 years down the road. We had 30 grand left of that 1.2 million, and we basically went, right, what are we going to do? What we realized really early on was that
Hi, Josh. Welcome to the show today. Let's start just by learning a bit about you. Provide me some context to your life before we move on to what you're doing now.
Look at that. What a grandiose question, Matt, to start a podcast. I like it. God, how far back to go? So I think I've always been obsessed, literally obsessed with turning ideas into something. So my whole being, I guess, has been creating something that wasn't something before and then turning it into something. And that happened when I was at school, happened when I was throughout uni. I always had this burning sort of desire to just make stuff.
Yeah.
Not necessarily physical, but something that didn't exist and making it into something that does exist. So it's been a very interesting journey from that point of view, because when I left uni, I founded a brand agency, which was pretty cool. We did well, and we can talk about that if you want. But in uni, I basically had a year in industry, and during that year in industry, I went to work for a big corporate, and very quickly realized that's not for me, because the sort of, you know, your chair squeaks along the floor and everyone looks at you, and I was like, oh my god, that sucks. So I've basically been on a mission to create something and to bring stuff into the world that's positive, but that I've created from nothing into something, but also to never work for anybody. And they're sort of my two missions really, and they've come together nicely with my current ventures. So
I love that sort of never work for somebody. And I think actually there's lots of entrepreneurs who, whether they started like that or during the journey, they've realized, actually, I don't think I could work for anyone ever again. And that's not to say working for someone is bad and you shouldn't do it, but it's just, there's something in us that just fires us up about being able to not go off on a tangent, but follow a real dream and a real purpose, and actually not have some of the constraints that you have when you're employed by someone, because you're building something that maybe they're more passionate about than you are.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've frequently, rightly or wrongly, used this phrase that I'm unemployable, and I've heard quite a lot of entrepreneurs say that. And again, to my future employer, if I ever need one, don't listen to this. But I was just painting myself into a corner there, but a corner I want to be in. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's not that working for someone sucks. It's just that what I need is autonomy and to have the decision making. Do you know what I mean? I need to just have that thing where I feel like I'm driving towards something.
Yeah.
But I do also think ultimately, and I've got investors, Matt, but ultimately, like, you are working for someone, right? Because I'm working for my investors, I guess, at the end of the day, which is an interesting thing. But yeah, I mean, just circling back, I think my life's mission, and it's I've spread everywhere really, is that turning ideas into reality is the thing that I love, and I'm on a mission to do that with all the stuff that I'm doing. So.
Cool. I mean, talk me through some of those ideas then. I mean, first of all, have you had an idea that's completely failed?
Yeah. Set up a fashion brand. Was my first business. It was Velour t-shirts, which was like a velvet t-shirt, which we quickly realized that nobody wanted. That was pretty interesting. It was like, who wants to wear a like sweaty velour t-shirt when you're going out? And we were like, people who are going to clubs are going to love it because it looks all shiny. And then obviously you put it on and you sweat like a madman. So yeah, that didn't work out. And then I've had multiple things over the years, like at uni. I've had ideas that have almost come to fruition but haven't quite, like crisps and dips, which was a great idea. Like, you walk into this place and you get a variety of crisps and dips. I thought that was like your idea. That actually did launch in Soho, in London, like, which is interesting. But I've had loads of ideas like that. But my most recent business, or the business that I spend most of my time doing, is called New Lane, and we've created a foldable bike helmet. So we've changed the game. I should probably have one next to me, but I don't. I'm gonna go get one in a sec. But it took us 6 years to get to the point where we could bring it to market. So I've had a 6-year journey of of it's been a roller coaster of emotions. We almost had to shut the business down 5 times. We needed ran out of money loads of times. Managing cash flow has been crazy. We've always had to raise investment. We thought we were never going to actually get the idea through. So I don't know. There's been almost mad points of failure in this journey, but ultimately now we've been in the market for 6 months and we launched recently and it's going really well. So, you know,
Yeah, everyone sees the launch, don't they? And they see suddenly the advert and the product and the things like that,
yeah,
forgetting actually that journey isn't always a linear. Oh, I've got an idea, I've built a product, I've got some funding, and now it's launched, and everyone's happy.
yeah,
And it's interesting actually. You went through some ideas that didn't work out, but sometimes for entrepreneurs, it is that pushing through, which I guess is different from being employed. Of just keep going. Okay, that idea didn't work. What's the next one?
exactly.
And being able to have that resilience, and
Yeah.
equally, I guess, do you ever find there's that moment where you think, is this idea failing and I should stop it and move on to the next one, or is this idea really tough? I just need to push harder.
Yeah. So interesting, man. That's the equation that we went through for 6 years. I want to quickly show you something. I know that some people aren't they might not be watching it. Look, you see that? That's my phone background.
Yeah,
Days, months. Yeah, I love it so much. It's like for the
yeah.
people
LinkedIn header as well, I think, isn't it?
it's what?
I think it's your LinkedIn header as well. I think
Yeah,
it's on.
here's my LinkedIn
Yeah,
picture. Yeah, so go have a look at my LinkedIn. But yeah, I mean, it's so poignant because like all people see is the sort of, oh wow, you've done really well. You're in the market. It's like the iceberg thing, isn't it?
yeah.
But then they don't see the stress, the sort of difficulty, the nearly running out of money. So yeah, it's a good point. And then I think you're right. Throughout the past 6 years, for me anyway, it's like that equation of, are we just never going to do this thing? Or is it just not a good idea? Do you know what I mean? And
Mm.
I think, but for us, what was lucky is that, again, I don't know if you want to go into the specifics of what we're doing, but for us, cycling was becoming a massive thing, and it was a massive thing, but it was growing, and it's
Yeah,
still growing. And you've seen the line bike revolution of everyone
yeah,
jumping on line bikes now. So throughout our journey, whenever we had a moment of, hang on a sec, are we just wasting our life doing this? um, we basically were checking in with people along the journey, and people go, no, it's part of the zeitgeist. It's happening. We will need this product. So we'd go chat to another investor, a customer or a potential customer, a retailer or whatever, and they would all sort of prove that what we're doing is valuable. So we kept pushing on. My glamorous assistant has just passed me one of the helmets. So here it is, basically. So yeah, it
yeah.
goes like that. So the way it works is there's a clamp at the back, and then you take the top piece and you spin it around, and it goes like that, and there you go. So that's what we spent 6 years developing.
You mentioned there about the Lime bikes and things like that. And I guess with all products, all ideas, they can be a great idea, they can be a great product, but you do need a market for them.
Mm.
And sometimes that part can be out of your control. But actually, with cycling being a sort of a growing market, and particularly in cities, actually, I mean, I think the UK were almost a bit behind, other cities, probably due to the weather, maybe arguably, but they are easy to cycle around because everything is much closer than you maybe think.
Yeah,
And actually,
yeah,
cycling is a great way.
yeah,
And I guess the
100%.
helmet adds the safety aspect to that.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. But your point about do you just crack on through the hardship is an interesting one, because there's a guy on I don't know if you watch Shark Tank, the American version of Dragon's Den. I'm sorry that I'm referencing that, but there's a guy on it who usually says to some people, he goes, "Why don't you take your idea outside and shoot it in the barn?" Because it's like either sucks, and he's like, "This is never going to work." And I think that frequently. Sorry, my dog's barking.
That's all right.
And,
Don't worry
and
about
that,
that.
yeah, the joys of working from home.
Yeah.
And that frequently came up for us, because it was like, is this just an idea that we need to go and shoot, or do we keep going? And I think 6 years, Matt, is obviously a hell of a lot of time to dedicate to a product that isn't getting through the tests. So honestly, if I took you through that journey, it's pretty wild, because we have moments of uh, so basically, just to explain, the reason why it took so long was because you had to get a product that protects people's heads
Yeah.
into a state that folds, which is interesting. So our helmet essentially cuts in half and then means you could put it in your bag. So that's why it took so long. And we kept going through the safety tests, and every time we thought we passed, we didn't. but the psychology of it is mental because you'd gear up to launch the business and you'd be going to your investors, guys, we're almost there, we're about to launch, like we were super close, and we hired people, we did all sorts to gear up for launch, and then it would go, oh no, sorry, you've just failed the test again. And we went through that cycle for 6 years, and every time we failed, we knew it was at least another 3 to 5 months of product development work to get to the next point. So the psychology of it is crazy because you kind of go, am I just doing something that's never going to work, or is this thing going to work? And then, as I say, I kept checking in with people and they kept going, yeah, my co-founder Dom was like, no, people need this thing. And I was like, yeah, they do, let's keep going. And then we got to a place where we did it. But I think I've had a lot of mates who give up very quickly, and I think some of them give up because they weren't actually passionate about the idea in the first place, or they haven't got the skill to make it work. So, sorry, mates, I won't name you by name. Or the idea was just shit. So it's one of those things. But I think if you have the right recipe, like people want your product and it gets endorsed, or your business, your service, and you are passionate about it genuinely and feel like it will make the world a better place, then I think you'll push on. And that was our recipe, basically.
You mentioned there about a co-founder, and I'm wondering whether actually being able to, bounce ideas off and talk things through, because it's often said business is a lonely place. Sometimes you don't want to share the worries with, your partner, your friends, and things like that. And because everyone else sees the sort of everything's going well part, but inside you're really, really tough. Have you found having a co-founder really beneficial to that?
Oh man, we wouldn't have got to where we've got to without Dom, and he says the same thing about me. You need that person to bounce ideas off. You need that basically on days when I'm down, he's up, and when he's up, I'm down, and we manage to flip flop like that. And it doesn't happen that frequently, but it just means that there's someone usually firing on all cylinders when someone else isn't. So that's been fantastic. And also we have different skills. Like Dom's 57. Which is a little bit older than me. Sorry, Dom. And he's got a set of skills that I don't. So, Dom's managing the product and doing amazingly at that. I'm dealing with the sales and marketing side, and it works perfectly. So it just means you can flip flop, right? I mean, I've seen people go on their own, and it's tough, man. It's really tough because you've got the burden of everything. Do you know what I mean? And obviously, we were talking off camera about cash flow and finance, and sharing that burden with someone's important for sure. And I also think that I was looking at the other day. I think Google had 2 co-founders, Airbnb had 2 co-founders, Apple had 2 co-founders. I mean, not most, but a lot of successful businesses have that double co-founder thing.
I agree with that. I was listening recently to the podcast with the Snapchat CEO, and again, co-founders, and he was saying actually the biggest struggle or the biggest challenge he had to overcome was pretty much himself. And what he meant by that was, his mind, on those days when you are feeling a bit low because of it, and maybe that's where having that co-founder actually. You hope a bit like, doing a pairs high rocks, one person can pick up a little bit when you're just, flagging, and that really supports you. Do you think one of the hardest challenges for entrepreneurs is that resilience, is understanding and getting out of those days when you just think, this isn't working, imposter syndrome starts to creep in, and it's very easy to give up because it is tough.
Yeah, I do. So there's lots of things whirling around my brain when we talk about this subject. But I think I really do believe this, and it's kind of become cliche. But I think if you believe in what you're doing, then it makes all the difference. Because I mean, you could be varying degrees of strong as a person. Do you know what I mean? Like you could go, I'm the most resilient, hardworking, nutty ADHD individual there is. Is that how I describe myself? Nutty individual there is, but at the same time, if I'm not that passionate or believe in what I'm doing, then I am just going to give up. Do you know what I mean? Whereas, it depends what you're going into business for. And I think a lot of people now, and again, a lot of people say this too, that becoming an entrepreneur or starting your own business is pretty sexy. Do you know what I mean? I think it's a sexy thing to have a cool title and all that. but I don't think that helps you push through. Like the thing is that you believe in what you're doing, which means that when it does get hard, you basically go, you know what, let's go back to baseline. What I'm trying to do here is this, and that's how I'm gonna keep going. I think it's important because it is hard, man. It's obviously one of the hardest things you can do. I mean, I watched Rory McIlroy win the Masters last
Yeah.
night. I think that's pretty damn hard. But setting up a business is hard too. So
Yeah, having something that you can lean on consistently, because, like you say, everyone sees the sexy side. You know, you're standing. I mean, it hasn't happened to me, but you know, the private jet and the glass of champagne with people, and people see that sexy side, but that doesn't happen 24/7. What you need is something that you can have 24/7
yeah,
to push you through, and that is having that purpose, that
yeah.
passion for whatever it is that you're working towards.
It makes me laugh because at various points during the journey, and again, I do it too. It's like you see your mate do a LinkedIn post. And this is my thing with LinkedIn. They do a LinkedIn post, and you give them a call, and you go, "Mate, you look like you're killing it. It looks amazing, smash." And I remember people calling me at points like that, and I was like, "What you don't know is that we have 11 grand in the bank account, and we've got 15 grand of costs that need to come out." So I mean, at that moment, you're like, you don't know that bit, and you also don't know the bit where we're struggling to do this or to get that done. And I do think it's interesting, and it's kind of my beef anyway. My beef with LinkedIn, but also I think generally is that being authentic and showing that side of things is just as important.
Mm.
Because you don't know how hard it is or whatever. But yeah, I think honestly, purpose. God, it's such an overused word now. But I think
But so many words do have become cliched
yeah,
slightly, but there is some real truth in them.
I
And
think
I mean, I talk a lot about the balance and things like that, because you're right. It's good to celebrate wins, and I don't think it's bad to celebrate the wins, to show some of the good that's going on. But I've had that. I've had those calls, or those people have stopped you in the street and said, "Oh, you're smashing it." And
yeah,
because you actually know the truth behind it, I then almost, like, the imposter syndrome creeps in even more. Like, oh, everyone thinks I'm doing really well, but I don't feel it. And therefore, I don't know, it can be tough. And maybe I don't celebrate the wins enough, because I have that fear of people going, "Oh, that's brilliant," and then you think, "Yeah, you didn't know that last week I was struggling to
yeah.
pay that bill."
Yeah, but I think a lot of business owners are driven by fear, aren't they? I think that's
Yeah.
because I'm awful at celebrating small wins. Like I'm to the people around me, they hate it because I'm always like, yeah, that was good. Next, do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? I know, and I don't know how deep you want to go, Matt, but I started therapy a few months ago, not because I'm anxious or got depression or anything like that, but because I saw myself in this loop of like never enjoying the small
Mm.
things. And I was
Yeah.
always had this like crazy thing where I was like, no, that's not big. The next thing will be bigger. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? And then what I've managed to unpick was like, let's say one day what's my ultimate mission is because I thought it was financial, right? I was like, right, when I get that big exit, when I sell the business and get loads of money, it'll all be fine. And that's the thing that will make me happy. But then what I've managed to unpick is not enjoying the journey or the bits that you're doing now is dangerous. Do you know what I mean? Because
Mm.
you need to enjoy these parts, and then when you get to the here's your exit, you'll probably step back and go, well, I'm still not happy because that doesn't fulfill X, Y, Z. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, and as someone who I'm quite open that I've had lots of therapy, and I still see my therapist, not as much, but every month, maybe, just to have a little bit of a check in, just to understand myself a little bit more. And it's exactly like you say, celebrating those small wins. And I regularly used to say to people, I'm sure many people have said this, oh, look, after next week, or when this happens, and it's like, no, worry about now.
Yeah,
But it is hard. We are always, okay, cool, that job's done, move on to the next one. And it is finding a way of just, I don't know, pausing and celebrating those. I saw a quote, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was basically saying, that the goal is actually the journey.
yeah,
And it is, because otherwise you get to the end. Yes, you might have had a buyout, you've exited, you've got a load of money, but actually, if you haven't really enjoyed the last 30 years, you
yeah.
think,
What's the point?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's also hard for like the people around you. Do you know what I mean, like your team? Because it's like, do you know what I mean? Some people go, "We've just done something that's really good." Like, I remember at the agency when, and you probably had the same thing, Matt, when you close a new client, and then everyone's like, "Oh, let's go to the pub," whatever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you have like a big team thing or whatever. I mean, I'm always, my default position is no, let's not go to the pub. Let's think about how we're going to deliver that now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Which is, or how we're going to get the next client. And
Yeah.
it's quite draining for the people around you, but I think it's also draining for yourself, right? I mean, it's long. I mean, but I also know I'm a part of quite a few founder groups. I know a lot of people go through very similar things,
Mm.
and also it's not obviously just founders, by the way. It's people generally, isn't it?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, this can happen in general life, can't it? Even away from business. I sort of wonder. You get a new car and you're so excited about it. To be honest, 3 weeks later, it's getting dirty. There's an old coffee cup in the footwell, and it's not as exciting. And you're like, well, when I get my next car, though, and it's almost the same with anything.
yeah. It's mad, isn't it? It's mad. It's mad that's how nature is humans, isn't it? To be that way. Yeah, but there's mechanisms to put in place, isn't there, that help you not to do that. I mean, I'm getting much better at it now. I mean, literally just talking to some people and going, you know what, that was cool, and what we're doing is good, and that brand partner or that thing that we've just done was actually quite a good thing to do. Well done. Now let's move on. Do you know what I mean? And stewing in that for a little bit longer. I also do think though that, and again, this is the counter to that argument, is that having that passion well, I'd package it up as passion, motivation, and drive probably.
Yeah.
Others people say, no, you're not celebrating small wins. But I go, no, that's what drives me and keeps me going on to the next thing. Otherwise, I would
Mm.
get complacent and probably start to relax a little bit. And I
Yeah.
think, all those lovely words that people bash around, like determination and resilience and all that, I think that comes from having that drive, or that sort of, I don't know, monster behind you that's going, you might not be able to do it, you might not be able to do it, so you'll be like running away from it, trying to make it work. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
as your podcast is called, mate, I think it's balance, isn't it? It's
It really is, and I'm sure lots of it goes back to almost that caveman style, and trying to hoard some food because you don't know what's going to happen in winter, and we're always just on to the next thing. We're always just trying to make everything a little bit better, but we are in a period of time where actually things are, I mean, okay, we could rant, couldn't we, easily about politics and all sorts, but actually we've got, most of us have got hot running water, and actually we've got a health service and things like that. Things are sort of good, and we should actually probably, if we take a day just for ourselves, that life isn't going to fall apart.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like there's too many safety nets in the way for most of us, isn't
Yeah.
there? I mean, obviously there's some people that unfortunately they're in a really hard place,
Yeah.
but I really believe there's too many safety nets in the way for so many of us to ever be in a place where it's going to be suited. So anyway, I don't know. It's it's an interesting topic, and one that I'm working on massively, and I know a lot of people who are working on it too. It's the sort of, drive, motivation, hunger versus going, you know what I'm doing is actually pretty good, and
Yeah.
the meeting of those is a hard thing to balance. Yeah.
There must have been that point though where you've had that sort of, it's happening, this is really cool. Was it the launch? Was it finally after 6 years actually getting the product out there? And was there a moment when you walked into a shop and saw it on the shelf and thought,
Man,
wow?
it's wild at the moment. I mean, I'm kind of in that now, but so what happened is we went on this mad journey for 6 years, and it was from idea to getting it safe. So it was 2018 to December 2023. And as I say, nearly ran out of money, nearly all sorts of things happened. So whatever you're picturing right now pretty much happened,
Yeah.
apart from actually dying. But things like, my co-founder and I had to go and get consultancy work because we were like, right, we need to go get some income because we're not going to have any money. So let's go get some income over here whilst trying to raise money for New Lane and keeping it alive over here. So we went through all of it, but in the mid 2023, we had I can't even remember what it was now. 10 grand in the bank. No, it's a bit more. Sorry, it's about 30 grand in the bank account. So by this point, we had raised, by the way, raised 1.2 million. And we spent a hell of a lot of money. That's sort of it's a pretty interesting piece of context for this.
Yeah.
We raised a lot of money from a lot of very cool investors, and we had one fund called the British Design Fund, who are phenomenal, and then a bunch of really passionate angel investors. So it got to 2023. We were 6 years down the road. We had 30 grand left of that 1.2 million, and we basically went, right, what are we going to do? We've got an unsafe product. The product just failed again, the safety test. And Dom and I sat there and went, oh my God, we've got barely any money left. So we found a design agency. Well, Dom found, my co-founder, a design agency in Belgium who were near our safety test house, who test the helmet.
Yeah.
And this guy, this little Belgian guy with tiny little round glasses, he's a design engineer, so you can probably picture what he looked like. And he went, I can fix it, in his French accent. And we went, can you? And he went, yeah, trust me, give me your last bit of money and I'll fix it. And we went, we've had design engineers from China, from the US, from Europe, from the UK, all trying to do this thing, and they're all failing. He goes, I can see the problem. And we went, all right. So we literally gambled, rolled the dice for the last time, gave him the money. And then we went through the changes, and we had to change the manufacturing stuff. Anyway, cut a long story short, on December the 18th of 2023, we had the email through from the test house that said, you are compliant. And we almost fell off our chairs. Honestly, it was crazy. It was like calling our mums, like, no, oh, she's crying, I'm crying, my girlfriend, wife's crying, everyone. It was mental. So that was probably the start of that process, of actually going, you know what we've done is actually pretty crazy. Because what I did in that moment is I went, wow, that's nuts. And even then I went, right, now we need to kick on. But that was probably the most. So we've been in the market now for 6 months. We've shipped nearly 3,500 of the helmets. We see them out on the streets. It's mad. I mean, I remember the first time I saw someone just zip past me with it. The other day I saw someone come out of London Bridge Station, put it out their bag, flip it, put it on their head, get on a line bike and ride off. And I was like, mate, you have no idea. Or maybe you do because you've seen our brand stuff.
Yeah.
No idea what's gone into that. So yeah, it's awesome. And I've had a few moments now where I'm getting better at going, you know what we've done here is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw, I think it was a social media video you put up, and that was, literally someone in the street who had one of these. And that sort of almost kickstarted that authentic brand content that you've really lent into. And I guess this sounds a funny question, was that you realize actually the authentic content really works? Or was this like, actually, we haven't got enough money to be paying for huge adverts as well? Or has it just been a win-win from both sides of that?
Yeah, probably somewhere in between. But what we realized really early on was that people want authenticity, and everyone talks about that, right? It's like, and I think so no one goes onto socials to look at a product. It doesn't matter what unless it's a beautiful shiny car or something. But no one goes, I'm going to go on Instagram today and look at a folding helmet. Like, no one cares. So that's probably point one. Point two was that we were seeing this shift from shiny, highly produced brand content into lo-fi, get your iPhone out and shoot something, and then people engage with it. So I was seeing that. And also I love YouTube, and I watch a lot of YouTube, and that was shifting towards long form, authentic, raw content where people just watch people, I don't know, walk around countries with a GoPro, and they wouldn't even edit it. It would just be that. So I was seeing all of that, and we then basically went, right, how do we create some content that's really authentic, really raw, and really real ultimately? And the thing we came up with was going out into the place where our customers are, which is the streets of London or the streets of another city, but we live in London, and putting a mic in someone's face and going, why do you ride a bike? And then we just have people sharing some really cool stories or telling us to go away or whatever. But they started to gain crazy momentum because I think people just love the fact that it is literally an iPhone in someone's face and it's a real conversation. And it just started flying. Like we've done 14 million views in the past 5 months or something crazy just from those reels, and they're super easy to produce. Do you know what I mean? Because
Mm.
a few years ago we did do a brand before we thought we were ready, but we hired a production company, massive shoot, models, locations, beautiful editing, all that stuff, and we ran those as ads when we launched, and they bombed. They didn't do anything. And then as
Mm.
soon as we started to produce this content, all of a sudden it all started picking up. Like it's crazy, man. The raw, authentic stuff is where it's at. And then so you've got organic content, and then you've got ads, and they're
Yeah.
two different things. But even with our ads, we shot some shiny stuff. And then one day we were walking in London, and our head of content, Frank, basically went, "I've got an idea. Dom, why don't you accuse Josh of not wearing a helmet whilst you're getting on a line bike, and I'll just hold the iPhone and shoot it." We did that, and that's our best performing ad by a country mile. It took us 5 minutes to produce, 10 minutes to edit, and it's been by far our best ad. And so I think all it shows is that we are now in a world of well, it's a complicated world, but we're in a world of raw authenticity, and that's what basically I'm trying to push through into the world is and where the world's going.
Yeah, being authentic. But do you think some of that's come from the fact of we have been exposed over the years to so many adverts, and obviously there's always been that leap of like to produce something a little bit sharper, a little bit more wow, a little bit more boom, and suddenly sort of production budgets have gone up, and people just want to grab people's attention by doing something they hadn't seen before. But actually, because of that, we've almost become not immune to it, but we see so many adverts every single day, and I'm sure many of them, my brain just completely zones out and just blocks them out.
Yeah, I think so, man. Honestly, we're inundated. I mean, what brands now talk about is you're not competing with, I don't know, if you've created a, trying to think of a product, but if you've created a product, you're not competing with necessarily direct products with that. You're competing with bamboo toothbrushes or recyclable yoga mats or chairs. Do you know what I mean? Because you're going for your feed all the time, so it's like constant, like being hit with all sorts of stuff. I'm being hit with at the moment with a toothbrush that you put over your whole mouth. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I haven't.
Honestly, it's like in my it's surrounding me. It's like I can't escape it until I buy it. It's hilarious. But yeah, I think we're inundated with stuff, and I think now, honestly, we're in the time of influencer, aren't we? In the time of personal brand and all that. That I think people now go, I don't really want to hear from the brand. I want to hear from people.
Yeah.
And I think that's also been the interesting shift. And that's why I think our content works, because it's not us going, our product's amazing, it's incredible, you'll love it, 50% smaller, goes in your bag, blah. It's walking up to someone and going, what do you think of this? And then going, oh, you know what? That's actually pretty cool, mate. So yeah, I don't know. We're inundated with stuff. I think people just want to see realness. And I think that's coming through.
Yeah, and hearing those stories from founders and the true story, and you are leaning into that a little bit, and I like it that actually, while you put out a lot of LinkedIn content and things like that, occasionally then there was that post where you were like, oh, sometimes it just gives me the ick, and I think that's really authentic, because lots of us have probably thought that but been scared to write it because you don't want to put other people off, that actually you're not this absolute LinkedIn guru who creates amazing posts every single time.
Yeah,
you have to sort of actually say, oh, some days I don't really want to do it, or in fact I don't even want to go on the platform today. And this isn't attacking LinkedIn particularly, this is just a general concept of actually just brands need to be authentic. And I know you as an entrepreneur, you're almost being, am I right, you're going to be followed around almost to tell that entrepreneurial story, and you're working with other entrepreneurs as well, aren't you? So there's sort of like three questions in one there. I don't know where we're going, but
No. I think, well, the first part was I think you were referring to that when I wrote that LinkedIn post. It was LinkedIn gives me the ick. Which, yeah, man, I had so many people messaging me off the back of that. It's funny because I think a lot of people feel it. Honestly, I have such a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn, because on the good side, it's given me brand partners have reached out because they've gone, I love your stuff. Investors have reached out because they go, I love your stuff. we get customers from it because it's brand awareness. So there's a lot of amazing stuff about it. But at the same time, and again, it's a bit harsh, but on my worst days, I call it a narcissistic echo chamber, where you just flash it up and you just start going, oh, "I'm amazing, I'm brilliant, like I'm incredible, I've got it all figured out," and I'm like, I don't have it all figured out at all. Like I can write the words down and I can share some of my thoughts, but at the same time, I think you need to balance it with some of the other stuff as well, because
Yeah.
it kind of annoys me when people only post positive things, because I'm like,
Yeah.
I get it, you've got some really good things to say and being optimistic is amazing, fantastic, but also
Yep.
why don't you weave in a post about how you're struggling or whatever, because I think people learn from that more than anything. So yeah, I don't know. Where am I at the moment with LinkedIn? I'm sort of midway. I sort of did a post last week, and then I had the ick for a week, and then I did a post, and then I've sort of got the ick again. So I don't know. I don't know how to figure it out, but we'll get there.
I mean,
I'm
what
sure.
what do you say to other entrepreneurs then? People who are maybe in that first 12 months of that 6-year journey you've
Yeah,
been through. What advice do you give them?
well, that's a good question. Um, I do it for the right reasons. Don't do it for the wrong reasons. Don't do it because it's sexy and cool and you want to be called an entrepreneur. Do it because you actually want to do something. I think that's point one.
Mm,
I think point two is that it's going to be tough, man, like really tough, and you need to figure out ways of getting through that. Um, and I think everyone does it in their own way, but I think the way to do it is by point one. Most things
yeah.
come back to that, but yeah, it's going to be really tough. And then I think don't go full time too early. Or it depends on your state, your financial position, or where you are. But don't go too early, because you can build alongside other stuff. I mean, I know some people have really intense 9 to 5s or 9 to 6, whatever it is. But, you do have evenings, you do have weekends, you can start building, you can do MVPs, you can put stuff
Mm,
out there that's not so polished and beautiful and get customer feedback really quickly. So do that and then figure out how you take the leap after. Because, I've seen a lot of people that go, right, I'm going all in on this thing. And then there's just so much pressure. Do you know what I mean? They
yeah.
give themselves so much it's hard, because then all of a sudden you've got this big, like, how am I going to pay my bills layered on top of it all, and then you've got, but it's the only thing I'm doing, and it becomes this like crazy amalgamation of life problems as well as business problems. And I
Yeah.
think trying to figure out your life in terms of stability, and then going, right, I'm going to go full time on this, is really important. But I know that's not always possible. um yeah, they're three bits of
It
advice.
is. Yeah,
Yeah,
it is tricky. I mean, I'm a big believer in, yeah, lots of people can and should try, if they're thinking of starting a business, to at least lay some foundations while they've still got an income and while they're still working. And I'm not saying, do this, completely when you're meant to be working. I'm talking about, you will just have to give up some weekends and some evenings to do this, because realistically, if you go full in for it, you're going to have to give up some weekends and some evenings probably anyway, because
exactly.
it's going to be tough. So you might as well get used to, it is going to be tough, but the more you can do while you've got an income coming in, because I think many of us, and you mentioned some of your figures earlier, almost underestimate or overestimate how long that money's going to last.
Yeah.
Even if we think, oh, I've got this amount in the bank, that should see me through for the next few months. No, it goes.
Mm, But I think, yeah, exactly. It does just go. It's weird, isn't it? I mean, literally, I remember the day that we raised £1 million as a round, and it was mental, because we did it all in one day. So everyone released their funds in one day. And I remember literally just like looking at my phone, and I was just like, this is wild. It was just like money just rolling in. I was like, wow, we've done it. And that was when we sat back and went, right, we have £1 million. Like, that's gonna last us forever, surely. Like,
Yeah.
that's it. We've done it. And obviously, as you say, you go through time and you make some mistakes and you spend 20 grand. I think also having loads of money is not always the right thing, because you start getting complacent, you start spending where you don't
Mm,
spend and all that. But so yeah, I think it's a good point. I think also it's important to balance the conversation with, it's also not for everyone, which I
mm,
think is an important thing to say, because um it's just not. Do you know what I mean? There are some people who just will never be able to do this, who think they can, but just won't. I think you can obviously learn to do it, and if you want to do it enough, you can. But I don't think it's for everyone because it is super hard. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I
yeah,
think that's a key takeaway. It is super hard. You know, there's no glossing over it. But if you've got the passion, like we said right at the beginning, then that will drive you through. What's one thing, just to finish off today? So the final sort of question: what's one thing you wish you knew right at the start that you know now?
good question. What's one thing I wish I knew? Let me think about that. It's pretty. It's probably a cash. It's so boring, but it's probably a cash flow thing.
Mm,
It again. I've also been on this sort of, again. You can't really call it a mission. 'Cause I've launched a YouTube channel recently, and I did a video about it was like 8 things that school doesn't teach you or something. And
yeah.
obviously personal finance is like one of the biggest things because you don't learn anything to do with that. And I think you've got you obviously got the passion and all that for the idea, and you got to make it happen. You got to network, you got to chat to people, you got to get it out there. But I think if you don't have your baseline, your finances under control, like you said before, Matt, then it's sort of destined for failure, no matter how good
Mm,
you are. Do you know what I mean? I think, and it's sort of really boring. I can't believe that's what I'm saying, but I wish that someone basically went from a personal perspective, but from a business perspective, and we got quite good at it quite quickly for New Lane, helpfully. But it's more about how do I make sure that I'm not burning through money? How do I make sure that my cash is okay? Blah 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 blah. So I think it's financial literacy basically is probably the thing that I wish I knew. And I think if I now, someone said to me, I sat down with an investor last week, and he said, what did he say? He said your 20s is for making mistakes, your 30s is for learning, and your 40s, again, this is obviously really generic, and your
yeah.
40s is, so 20s is for making mistake, 30s is for learning, and 40s is where you can potentially make money because
Yeah.
and I think that's interesting, right? As a sort of way of making sure that you have your foundations in place. So I think if I went again on another business, it would all be so different.
Yeah.
It would all be different. So yeah, learn how to be financially literate and manage your finances. Probably.
I actually think that's almost like the perfect answer, because it reaffirms what we were talking about earlier, that if you're going into business because you think it's sexy and because you see the sexy side and you see all the great social posts, you might think, yeah, that's it. But actually, the bit you've got to get right first isn't how you're going to take your selfie with champagne. It's how are you going to manage your cash flow, because cash just kills businesses.
Yeah, yeah. But it's such a boring answer, isn't it? You want something like
But it's so, yeah, but
more
it's
like,
so true. And I think actually that's part of it. Having those conversations, we can celebrate the wins. We can, be excited. We can be an entrepreneur, be a founder, have those titles, but equally,
yeah.
that's not real life 24/7. You do have to occasionally stare at a spreadsheet and go, okay, with that coming out next week, we need to bring this back in, and just have those decisions. And it's the bits that maybe people don't talk about enough. I'm sure accountants do, but a lot of sort of founders don't. They just share the next you know funding that they've received or investment they've received or how they've helped a client make this, not understanding some of those basics.
But also, I don't know if you said it on the pod or before, but also you can hire people to help you. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's,
Yeah.
because that's also such a big thing of the journey, is that if you're not good at, because I'm not amazing at finances, and again, I think if I had to be like completely on the money all the time, well, I am, but at least I've got a fractional CFO, which sounds
Yeah.
grandiose, but it's a guy that I knew who joined the business a few years ago, who basically looks at all our spreadsheets and makes sure that we're doing okay and tracks our stuff, and we have weekly meetings about it. But I
Yeah.
think if I was always focused on that, I think it kind of might kill innovation quite a lot, because
Mm,
you're constantly worrying about the money. So I guess the other thing is, if you're rubbish at it, don't worry, just get someone who isn't. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? I think there's always people out there that are willing to help,
Yeah.
and that's probably a good thing to do for sure. So
Yeah. I completely agree. Outsource the bits you're rubbish at as soon as you can.
Yeah, I'm a changed man. Honestly, you asked me that question a few years ago, that wouldn't have been the answer. But that just shows you, doesn't it?
I've loved our conversation today. I've loved hearing about your journey. The product you produce is, the innovation behind it is brilliant, but equally by making it easier for people to put it in their bag and so on and so on, potentially there is that life-saving part to what you do. You will have at some point, saved someone's life, and you don't want to think about a bike accident, but they happen. But actually by removing some of that friction of wearing a cycle helmet, I guess, by someone being able to put it in their work bag is just, such a great purpose behind that. So
Thanks.
big up for all that work. Look, enjoy the rest of your day. It's been fantastic chatting to you. I'm excited to follow the rest of your journey, and enjoy yourself.
Thanks for having me on, Matt. Appreciate you.
Take care. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Balanced Ambition podcast. I genuinely hope the stories inspire you as much as they inspire me. If you found value in today's conversation, please share it with a friend. And remember, by subscribing, you won't miss an episode, and it would truly mean the world to me. Stay balanced, and I'll see you next time.